What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Groomer podcast. I'm your host, Alex Martin, and today we have got back on one of the greats, John Hewitt. John is the former founder and CEO of Hewitt Tax and Liberty Tax, and he's here today joining us as also I don't know what your title is here, John. I'm going to go owner of Zoomin Groomin, one of the biggest, if not the largest, mobile grooming operations in the country. We brought on John back today. If you guys throw it back to one of the original episodes with John, we went all through his story about how he jumped from the tax world over to the franchising world and started flirting with mobile grooming. And so today's conversation, we're going to talk a lot more about how to scale a mobile grooming business. So John, thank you so much for coming back on with us today. We got so many pieces of good reviews and feedback from your first episode. I was just so eager to get you back on, so I really appreciate the time.
Alex, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
All right, John. So let's start with a little bit of context here. I know from just our past conversation, you and your partners had bought Zoomin Groomin. Take me back to what it was like when you bought it. What was the size? How was it operating? All of that sort of juice.
Yeah, the owner had, she's a very talented woman who had been in marketing most of her career, and she even had her own advertising agency. And about 15 years, she got burned out in advertising and somehow found her way to grooming. And she grew it to about 10 different locations and then declined. So she was almost getting ready to shut it down. She had one franchisee in Massachusetts that was an absentee owner, and he had his daughter running 3 vans, doing very well, grossing over $600,000 or $700,000, netting about $150,000 a year. He was just doing it for his daughter. And then we had a failing franchisee in Florida who had bought it by mistake. She inherited money, and she was a real nice lady, but she was a grocery clerk at Publix, the local grocery chain in Florida. And that's what she liked to do. But she decided she inherited money and wanted to seize the American dream, and she became a franchise of Zoomin Groomin, and was a poor performer from day one. Didn't follow, and poor performers as we talked about last time, difference between great performers and poor performers is how much you follow the system, right? The people that follow the system 98% of the time, superstars, less than 90% fail, somewhere between 90 and 98%, you're average. And she was below average. She wasn't even following 60%. So she ended up leaving. So we acquired that 3 years ago, and we brought in our first new franchisee. We put in our own CEO, kept the founder on as a consultant, and still she owned a small percentage of the company. And we brought our first franchisee in August of 2021.
Okay, so pause. You brought your first franchise in August 2021, and you said you bought it early 2021?
Yes.
Early 2021. And, for a lot of us out there listening, especially in the mobile grooming world, this one's out to you guys specifically that are trying to become multi-van operators or even set up your own multi-van franchise. John, I get this question a lot, and so I'm curious on your take of it. The exit path for mobile grooming companies, once you get past a few vans. It's funny that you brought up the lady you bought it from had 10 locations, but she was about to shut it down, right? And I think that exit path is very rarely thought about. And so from your perspective on the buying side, what made this business valuable? What made this business something? I'm sure you guys looked at several mobile grooming businesses and chains, for lack of a better word, right? Why was it this business? What about this business was valuable so that our audience out there can start putting, dotting their I's and crossing their T's on what do I need to do in my business so that it could get bought by someone like a John Hewitt one day?
Remember that in my case, I'm looking at a franchisor, and most of your people are looking at becoming a franchisee or acquiring an existing franchisee. So it's a bit different, right? But I did look at another franchise chain, and we couldn't do a deal. And in visiting that other franchise chain, I really got intrigued with pets. The other franchise chain was also not doing well in the sense they weren't adding new franchisees. The parent company of the other chain had, in their little city of about a couple 100,000 people, they had 18 vans, and they had 35 with 35 groomers, and they had 35 pet sitters, dog walkers. So they were kind of 2/3 grooming and 1/3 income from pet sitting and dog walking. And so I said, wow, what a great, and they were making tons of money, and they weren't great operators. They had sold franchises. They had become a franchisor in about 5 years. They only brought in like 3 or 4, and they were all local to that area. And when we talk about how we grow, just simplistically, in 30 months, we're in 25 states and 75 cities. So my growth is far different from their growth. They're unable, even though they had a very successful operation in their home territory, they weren't able to sell it or replicate it. None of the franchisees were able to replicate with their success.
Would you rather be 30 vans in 1 or 2 states deep, or 3 vans in 30 states deep?
I'm ambivalent. I will say this, that one of the mistakes I made and I think it sounds logical when you think about it. When we started Jackson Hewitt in 1985, started franchising, we had 21 offices in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and 1 in Durham, North Carolina. And we thought my initial strategy was, let's expand geographically. Let's go from Virginia Beach to Richmond to DC to Baltimore to Philadelphia, going north, and going south. Let's go from Virginia Beach to Raleigh, Durham to Greensboro, Winston-Salem to Charlotte to Atlanta, and let's expand geographically. And Alex, what I found out is that even though that sounds logical, that you can put a great franchise 1,000 miles from the nearest office, 1,000 miles, and they'll do fantastic. You can expand geographically and have great brand name and a great territory with a poor performing franchise, and they will fail. So it's not territory related, it's people related. So I learned to expand very early in my franchise expansion. I learned to expand by the quality of the franchisee, not the quality of the territory.
That's excellent. I mean, let's use that as a highway to kind of this next set of questions I've got, which is around scaling people. It seems like in grooming, I mean, we all know it's not a secret that finding and retaining good talent is extremely difficult. From the groomer perspective, it's a skill, it's an art form that you can't just find any Joe Schmo off the street to fill. But we also know that it's really taxing on your body and physically demanding. And so, the tenure of that quality is tested often. But even more so in your sense, in the mobile sense, these people also have to be competent business runners, for lack of a better word, right? They need to be customer facing, and they need to be responsible and accountable because they are running a business. And so talk to me about how you approach hiring, especially from where you went to where you guys are now. When you guys started and it was just, the 10-ish locations or so, how did you ensure that, hey, these first franchises are going to be filled with rock stars.
Yeah, the key to us isn't in the grooming skills of our owners. We have about 110 franchisees already, and only 3 of them, I think, are groomers. So we're not hiring people that are looking to just be a groomer shouldn't buy a franchise, right? You should come and work for us. We're looking for CEOs of the business. So we look for people that can be CEOs for the business. So we have a process in all my 8 brands, when we bring some in, we look, number 1, should they be self-employed? Number 2, what industry should they be in? Number 3, is this the right fit is Zoomin Groomin the right fit with that person? Because I get to pick you and you get to pick me. It's not you just buy something from me, right? If we go down this road, we're going to spend many years together. So we want to make sure we pick the right people. So we don't approve people until they come to training with us and spend 3 days with us in Virginia Beach to make sure that they're the right fit, because we're going to spend many, as I said, many years together. And then, so it has to be, should they be self-employed? Is this the right industry? Is it a good fit? And then is it the right timing? And we take people all the way through that process before they approve them into the system. And Alex, I brought in 5,200 franchisees. So I'm one of the foremost leaders in the world at selecting franchisees and supporting training, supporting, and helping franchisees become all they can be.
I mean, I just was taking notes as you're saying that there, John. So the four things that you're looking at when you are hiring a new franchisee or a new owner is, should they be self-employed? Are they a good industry fit? Are they a good culture fit? And is this the right timing for us and them? I really like that. And those 4 questions, I mean, could keep you out of a lot of trouble. So I wanted to reflect on something you said. You said it so nonchalantly, but I think it's so rare, for lack of a better word, in this industry, is that you actually separate out your business model where you will hire an owner for your van or owner for the franchise business, whatever we want to call it. And then they will have a staff groomer that works with them. So the owner is not the groomer. There's actually a groomer too, versus I think the traditional model, or the more, I guess the more traditional model is the best way to say it, is having the owner be the groomer as well. Talk to me about how do you reconcile that? Then the business is taking on 2 payrolls, for lack of a better word. You're paying the owner to run that van. You're paying the groomer to groom then. I think a lot of people would say, how does that work? I mean, how do you make the numbers work out there?
Well, let me say a couple things about that. First of all of the vans are franchisees, so they don't get any pay. The beauty of franchising is that, and it's a spectacular way to build a business, is my job is to get you a system of doing business. Your job is just to implement that system in your geographic area. And if I do my job, your job is that's all you have to do. So franchisees actually pay me to work for me. I don't pay them. A franchisee pays me to work for me. So their only salary or their pay is the groomers. And I have to say that out of all the industries I've experimented with, which is about 20, this is the only industry where you're profitable from day one. The day your van hits the road, you're cash flow positive. So it's an amazing business, and you just pay your groomer a percentage of the sale. So if you have no sales that day, you're not paying a groomer. So it's an extraordinary model and I love the franchise system and building all my companies with franchises, because I get a higher talented person because they're investing money and time, and they act like owners. In all the companies I've had for 55 years of business, less than 5% of the people act like owners, but 95% of my owners act like owners. So I get someone acting like an owner that's all in, that's giving me money to work for me. I mean, it's an incredibly It's an incredibly viable system as long as you have an excellent working model.
Really interesting. And we talked about this a little bit last time about how people in grooming are typically turned off by the franchise model. Again, with fair spirits, given what Petco, PetSmart, some of the big corporates have done to the industry and have done to, the way they've treated many of the people in the industry. But I think you're looking at it with an outside angle. I mean, I know you're looking at it with an outside angle, given your background in the tax world. What that makes me think of is we're seeing a lot of mobile grooming businesses across the country right now expand very quickly across multiple states. Yet very few of them are actually franchising their concepts. A lot of them are staying, family owned, or let's call them, this flagship model, right? I know you talked about a lot of the advantages in franchising are they begin to think like owners. Instead of hiring an employee to run your van 3 states away, you have an owner owning that van 3 states away. And so I can see the ownership being a big pro on the franchise side. But where are some of the disadvantages to franchising versus the flagship model?
The biggest disadvantage is that managing franchisees is totally different than managing employees, right? You can hire and fire employees, and they pretty much have to follow a certain path. And you can't do that with employees. I'm sorry, you can't do that with franchisees. They're independent operators. And so they will complain it's when you're CEO of a company that has employees, you rarely get complaints because people don't want to cause red flags. They don't want to upset the chain of command. They don't want to get their boss angry at them. They don't want to tell CEOs bad news. You rarely get complaints. But in a franchise world, you get complaints about everything, even when you're right. And there's nothing you can do that would please everyone. If I went to my 110 owners at Zoomin Groomin and said, I'm going to write you all a check for $10,000 and I'm going to wire it to you today, you might think, Alex, that how could anyone complain about that? But the franchise, the oldest franchise that's been with me the longest, is paying me $100,000 worth of royalties, and they're netting hundreds of $200,000 a year profit. And they're saying, well, I'm paying you 100,000 royalties. The new guy's only paying you $5,000. So if he's getting $10,000, I should get 100,000. So I shouldn't get the same as that little guy that's not paying any royalties. And the little guy that's starting says, I'm not making any money yet. That big guy's already making $250,000 a year on his 5 vans, and he doesn't need the money. I'm the one that's cash flow break even or not making money yet. I should get more money. And so you're always going to get people to complain and to fight. And so they are renegades. And I don't know if you're young, maybe, do you have children yet?
No, I don't.
You've been a child, and you know that there are times you should have listened to your parents and you didn't. And if you don't agree with that, give me their phone number and I'll ask them. Right. But
no, I see what you're saying.
Human beings don't listen. I brought in 5,200 franchisees in my career, and not one has ever listened 100%. So you're dealing with a lot of mavericks and renegades, and it's an us against them mentality. And it takes a special art to be a CEO leader of a franchise organization, different than a regular employee only organization. And most people can't make that change. Most entrepreneurs fail to make that change. That's why in this country, over 90% of franchisors fail.
Wow.
90% of franchisors fail. They go out of business.
Okay, so maybe on that note, it might be a good question to ask. If I'm a mobile grooming business owner, okay, I operate under the flagship model. I have 5 vans. I started with 1 van grooming myself, and I just started figuring it out. I bought a few more. Now I've got 5 in my, local tri-state area here. And I really want to scale this thing. At what point do I ask myself if a franchise model is right?
Well, you can ask yourself at every point, and you should be asking yourself at every point. But it's going to be hard to it depends what your goals are, Alex. If your goal is just to be in Dallas Fort Worth and have 10 or 15 vans, and you already have 5, then it's going to be a hard sell for you to join us, and probably change your name. Almost certainly change your name, and now you're going to have to follow systems that are better than your systems. But this is the way I've always done it. People come to training that already have a existing business. Say, I've been doing it this way for 10 years. I'm not going to change, right? So you're reluctant to, even though you should change and should improve, and our vans do better on average than your vans, you're reluctant to change. So if you're just going to scale within one market, then, and you already have multiple vans, it's going to be unlikely you're going to join me. The time you really need me is if you want to go statewide or region wide, or you want to go to Houston, you want to go to Austin, you want to go to Oklahoma City, you want to go national. Then that's when you need someone like me and the ability to scale that I've shown in all of my companies. And most of the people that join us that are converting have just one, and they want to get to 8 to 10, and then we provide so many advantages for them in terms of the quality of the system, the brand name, the fact that the succession plan, you have buyers out there when you're ready to sell, you have people that convert within the system that you don't think about it when you're a mom and pop. But we just had our first groomer that started in August of 2021, just moved to Connecticut. And now she's working from Virginia Beach. Now she's a groomer for our Connecticut office. I told that story to a franchisee in Memphis, and she said 2 of our customers in Virginia Beach moved to Memphis, and our customers in the Memphis office. So you don't think of that when you're a mom and pop, that you get all this advantage of more employees, more customers, and more referrals. Not everyone you refer lives in your market. So if you do a great job for someone in Dallas, and you only have vans in Dallas, even if it's in Fort Worth, they're probably going to go somewhere else. But let alone if it's in El Paso or Los Angeles or Minnesota. So when you have locations all over the country, you get the referrals and the retention that pays for the franchise cost.
Totally makes sense. I mean, you've got a name brand that customers begin to trust, and
Right.
they'll look for that in other markets as they move or as they refer their family, friends, etc.
1 out of 7 of every H&R Block customers, they have 9,000 locations. 1 out of every 7 go to a different office.
Wild. That's
so you get 14% of your business from some other Zoomin Groomin. I mean, it's just free marketing that you don't get when you're a mom and pop. It pays for all the costs to join us.
So let's talk about as you scale as a franchisor, or as a business owner of any large scale mobile grooming network, managing people, whether they're employees or franchisees, becomes increasingly difficult without systems. What systems do you use to ensure the quality of your business is still high as you begin to spread your wings at scale?
The easiest word is everything. Everything from how you hire, what you pay, what kind of contract you give them a contract to sign, the principles, policies, everything is prices, everything is laid out for you. So the easiest thing to say is the system is everything that you need. But let me give you an example. Some of our parts of our system are better than anyone else's. And so let me give you one of my favorite things that no one does except for us. And that is that after we've groomed, 2 days later, we call the customer and we ask them how we did for them. And they love being called. They love it because almost not only are we unique in the grooming industry, we're unique in virtually every industry. I mean, Alex, how many businesses called you in the last 12 months and asked you how they did? Lots of them will email you or here, fill out this postcard or fill out this paper, or as I said, an email, but no one calls. So they love being called, so our retention goes up. And what we've learned, Alex, is that groomers are excellent at grooming dogs. They're horrible at asking for a referral. So we get this very personable person. I mean, someone like yourself calls them up and says, how do we do for you? And they say, I loved it. It was fantastic. I can't wait for you to come back. I already made it. And so you can make an appointment right then at the time, because we don't have our groomers make appointments because they'll screw that up. So you can make a next appointment already, but you ask, do you know anyone else that might be interested in our service? And so, you know what? Our referrals go up 50%. And it gives us an added advantage if on the 2% of the time we have a screw up employee, we find out they're screwing up long before we would if we didn't ask. A lot of people don't complain. And maybe they did something, I can't even imagine. While they were walking the dog into the house, they spit on the sidewalk 7 times and it aggravated the owner. And they chewing tobacco, or I mean, who knows what, smoking, or they could have any complaint. And Alex, it doesn't matter if you, the owner, the franchisee, thinks they're doing a good job, or I think they're good. It only matters if the customer thinks they're doing a good job. So you want to hear it from the customer. You want to get more retention, more referrals. That's one part of our system that is, and we have several that are unique to our company that make us best system in the universe.
I mean, that makes sense. You can't run a big business without systems like that. And I remember you mentioning that call thing, at a high level last time we talked, and I was always curious about that. So 2 days after you give them a call, it's extremely smart. And obviously you guys are at scale where you can hire someone to do that and track that. Let's talk about some of the other systems though. I'm curious how you think about training, hiring, retention, the labor problem, that level of system. Do your owners train the groomers? Do you send them off to a certain school or academy? How does that all work?
Well, we have training relationships with vendors that train groomers. However, I've been one of the most pleasant surprises I've had in this industry is the ability to obtain excellent groomers. And that is simplistically because the other competitors treat them so poorly, especially in the storefronts. They pay a lot less in the storefront. And so it's after COVID, an incredibly difficult time to hire across every industry. But I've been amazed at how well we've been able to attract groomers. In fact, I just heard at our weekly phone call last week that there are a few of our franchisees have a waiting list of groomers that want to join them because we pay well, we treat them well because of our culture. We have an elite culture, and we pay them well, and we treat them well. And so not only do they want to stay, but they refer their friends. Almost every groomer that we recruit has worked with other groomers in the past. And when they go back and reach out to their friends from the past and say, boy, I'm having a ball here. Would you like to join us? And so most of our once you become a franchisee, after the first 6 months, most of the groomers come in by referral from the existing groomers.
Wow. Okay. That's and that's just speaks to the quality of keeping your employees happy as well, or keeping your groomers happy, because your next groomer is right around the corner as long as your current groomer is happy. Otherwise, somebody else is going to be courting them. Exactly what you're doing to a lot of the brick and mortars.
Exactly. And in the book Nuts, about the development of Southwest Airlines, he said it used to be customer number one, but now he said no. If you want your customers to be treated as number one, you need to treat your employees as number one.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, talk to me a little bit about retention, again, I'm sure you have very comprehensive systems in place, but given you've got owners and you've got groomers, and I know your groomers are on commission, what other things do you guys offer besides just a high grooming commission? Or what other things can other owners out there think about to offer besides just beaten with pay that will cause groomers to find that good culture? And I know some of this stuff's a little bit hard to describe, but there's got to be a list of just best practices of, okay, hey, benefits seem to do really well. If you can offer benefits, that'll be great. I'm only working X days a week. Give me some of that color there.
Yeah, and when you have a great culture, you have to be flexible, and so you give your best groomers the best hours. So there are certain days of the week, or neighborhoods, or customers that you want to give to your best. It's sort of like when you have a basketball team. The NBA Finals. I watched it last night, and you put your best players on the field, on the court, right? And you have a bench of about 8 other players, but they rarely come in. They come in a little bit, but you give your best people the most hours. So you give them the most lucrative hours, the most lucrative assignments, and you're very flexible. If they say I need a week off or 2 weeks off, God bless you. There's only one way to get loyalty, and that's to give loyalty. And so you have to be very loyal and nurturing to your best people.
Okay. And as we wrap this corner here, John, I'd like to do this section, and we didn't get a chance to do it last time. But what I like to do with some of the other multi-unit operators out there is do a little bit of benchmarking. You see a lot of data. Obviously, you have a lot of many vans. How many are you guys up to now?
We're up to about 130.
Oh my gosh. All right. So you see 130 vans, and these are all even better from a data perspective. They're all independent. They're franchisees, but they're all owners. They're not employees. And I love it too because they're spread across geographically. And so this section should be really good for us. But I want to do a fast round of benchmarking. And so I've got some typical points that I like to go through just from your perspective, so we can help out more of the independent operators out there that are trying to understand if they're not making enough, making more than the average, if they're charging too little, charging more than the average, et cetera. So we'll just kind of go down the line here, and I'd love your opinion on, from what you see, what your take is. Okay, so from what you see, and this might be standard operating procedure, but how many days a week should a van run?
7.
How many hours a day should a van run?
10.
How much should a mobile groomer one van aim to make? One van aim to make?
They should, the minimum, they should, if they come close to following the system, is $200,000
a year
revenue. Yep.
And talk to me about margins on that.
The minimum profit should be $50,000.
Awesome. Okay, talk to me about commissions. What should the average mobile grooming commission be?
To the groomer?
To the groomer.
Should be 40 to 50% of the ticket.
And we can back into this with your margin stuff, but let's break down, if a mobile groomer is making $200K a year per van and they're making $50K profit, where's the other 150 going? So talk to me about the other major expenses that.
Most of it is in the groomers.
In the actual commission payments.
Right. So you're going to pay, if you averaged 100,000, including benefits, then that's 100,000 of your 200,000 expenses, or 200,000 income. Half of it goes to the groomers.
Mm-hmm. And so that breaks out the rest of it, I guess. And then
you lease the vans, so, and the leasing and gas and everything, that's going to be another 30 or 35,000. So it's almost just two major expenses, is the van and the groomer, and very little else. The advertising is minuscule. That we have these beautiful vans that advertise themselves. Plus, we're experts at social media. When we started our first van, they spent $500. And August 18th of 2021, they were booked 3 weeks in advance with $500 of advertising.
Incredible. And I know we talked about this a little in the beginning, but just to even hit the nail on the head here, when you choose locations, I get this question more times than I can count about where to launch their next van. And your advice would be, do not choose on location, choose on the staff, choose on the groomer, the owner, the franchisee, whatever it is, right? You're choosing for labor, you're not choosing for location. Is that what you would answer that question? Or is there an element that you
Well,
do look
if
at
I was,
zip code?
well, you're talking to a different audience than I'm talking to, right? If I'm looking for a franchisee, then I look for the quality franchisee. If I'm looking into a independent operator or one of my franchisees in a city, it's mostly adjacent. You will be getting. I mean, think about it. If you're in a city that's capable of handling 3 vans, right? And it's size, enough population, enough dogs, cats to handle 3 vans. Well, you will see in your first few months where the prospects are coming from. And so you'll be able to tell based on, let's pretend there was only 3 zip codes, right? 001, 002, and 003. You're operating in 001. Well, over the first 6 months, how many inquiries did you get from 002 and 003? And territory 002 and that will guide you as to where you should wait your next van based on how effective your marketing has been, and you're already servicing a little bit in those areas. So it'll be based on the demand that you've seen as you're building your business.
That's right. I forgot about that. No, that makes, I mean, that's really, really smart, honestly. It's looking through your, inquiry forms or your customer call-ins and seeing where most of the action is coming from that you're not already servicing, or that you're not servicing in bulk, let's call it. I think it's a great way to do that. Okay, John, as we round the corner here, as we sign off on this podcast, what's one word of advice that you would leave to mobile grooming business owners that have, let's call it 5+ fans?
There's very few of them in the country. So I would
let's less than that then. Let's go.
Okay.
2+ fans.
Yeah. The most difficult thing is going from 1 to 2. If you can go to 1 to 2, you can go from 2 to 10. But a lot of people can't go to that second band because they're just not good enough managers. But you have to be committed to improve. I've lived a life in business of improving every day. One of our mission statement at Liberty Tax when we first started was improve each day. And so you have to be committed to improvement. But what I've seen in my thousands of franchisees is everyone ends up getting complacent. As soon as they make enough money for the car they want, the house they want, the education for the children they want, the vacations they want, the work-life balance they want, they stop working. So it depends how big you want to be. It depends some people are going to be happy with 1, some people 4, some people are never going to be happy. So it depends what your goals are. But if you have extraordinary goals like I have, then you need to be an extraordinary commitment to improvement.
Awesome. Well, John, we really appreciate you coming back on the show. Like I said, the first episode left us with so much value that we needed to get you back on. You're an extraordinary man with extraordinary goals. So thank you so much for sharing all of that information on scaling. If you guys want to find John, I think you've got a book out. Plug the book again. What's the name of it?
It's I Compete. And again, if they reach out to loyaltybrands.com, just send loyaltybrands.com your address and we'll send you a free book. It's also a bestseller on Amazon, but we'll send you a free book if you just reach out to us.
Awesome. John, thanks again. We'll have you back on soon. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. Have a wonderful day.
And that's the pod.